Welcome, my name is John, and I'm just here to discuss movies on the YT. And if you'd like to join that discussion, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell as well. And today, we are talking about the brand new Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder cut of Justice League. It is finally here. It is vastly different. I mean, like about half of the theatrical version wasn't even Zack Snyder footage, and this is like 4 hours long. And so like we've only previously seen like 1 hour of Zack Snyder footage, and even that 1 hour was edited completely differently. And this movie blew my expectations out of the park. It exceeded my expectations like tenfold, because I'm very critical on BVS. I'm not the biggest fan of it. But this movie, it takes all of the great things that BVS had, but it doesn't have any of the villain issues that BVS has regarding terrible casting and terrible Doomsday adaptation. And I was just blown away by this movie. It's not perfect, but honestly, it's probably my favorite DCEU movie. I don't know, maybe as time goes by, it doesn't quite stay up there as that much, but it's one, the more I think about it, the more I actually like it and love it even more than I did after my first reaction after watching it. And so, let's just get started. So in Zack Snyder's Justice League, the overall plot and story is essentially the same, and if you want to put it into like one small paragraph, it's Steppenwolf gathering the mother boxes to create a boom tube portal for Darkseid. But this adds so much to the story that helps add so much more to the story that we'll get into. And so, starting off with the action is so much better in this movie. There are things like action sequences, things like particularly when Steppenwolf goes to get the Amazonian box. There's so many little action details and snippets that the theatrical version didn't have that just adds so much to the engaging aspect of the action. Just small little sequences about like how the Amazons like stop him and they prevent him from almost getting it. They almost prevent him from getting the mother box. There's so many small little details added to the action sequences that just enhance the engaging aspect of them so much more than the theatrical version had. And I don't think the theatrical version is the train wreck people think it is, like that people say it is. That being said, it's still not that great, and this is 10 times better. And even apart from that, everybody has a clear role in the action sequences. Like when you get to the third act, everyone has a clear role. Flash has his role, Aquaman has his role, Batman has his role, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Superman, they all have a clear role, where in the original, in the theatrical cut, the Flash, they couldn't think of much to do with him, so they had him like pushing a car and all of that. Where in this version, they have clearly defined roles that make great use of their special skill sets. Now, moving on to the acting and the characters, obviously the cast is still great. That was one of my biggest high points of the theatrical cut, was the cast. I love the cast. I'm not fully sold on Ezra Miller, and this sold me on his performance, even though I still wish they would have done a Wally West Flash instead of Barry Allen for the movies. But, that doesn't really affect this movie in terms of its quality. And the big thing this movie does differently than the theatrical cut is it gives you reason to root for these characters. Cyborg and Flash, you barely knew anything about them in the theatrical cut, but this version, it gives you emotional reasons to be invested in them as characters. And beyond that, the reasons they show you, the backstory they give you, not only gives you reason to root for them, but especially in Cyborg's case, it helps you understand the actual science of the mother boxes. It helps you understand how you stop them, how you can find them. And so not only does it add emotional weight, it adds small little details that help add to the story and make it make a lot more sense. And another thing about this movie's characters, this version's characters, is the thematic richness of the theme of second chances. Every character in this movie, at least main characters, has like this second chance thing, including the villains. Batman, the entire movie is him atoning for like the sins he made in BVS, is getting a second chance. Wonder Woman, the Amazons were just so close to preventing Steppenwolf from getting the mother box. And then at the end, it's her second chance to atone for letting the Amazons lose, or for not being there to help the Amazons, because with her helping, she could have prevented him from getting that mother box. And then Aquaman, it's not so much him getting a second chance as much as him learning to give Atlanteans a second chance. And then Cyborg obviously has a second chance at life with his father saving him. Superman has a second chance since he's being resurrected. The Flash spent all his life obsessed with his mother's murder and everything. And by the end of the movie, he's got a true actual career job and everything, the second chance of his future. Even Cyborg's father, Silas, he like sacrifices himself to atone for, spoiler there, I guess, to atone for the sins he made as a father and what he did to his son, and that second chance. And then when you get into the villains, it's Darkseid's second chance to conquer Earth. It's Steppenwolf, as you'll find out with a conversation he has with Desaad. He had wronged Darkseid in the past. He had failed Darkseid, and he had been exiled from Apocalypse because of that. And this is his second chance to prove to Darkseid that he is a great conqueror. And so you just have this thematic richness throughout this film, and it never loses sight of that. And it's just felt all the way throughout this film. And it never loses sight, and it just adds so much more emotional impact and thematic expression throughout. Now moving on to the visuals. The visuals here, the cinematography is really great. That's one of Zack Snyder's strong suits. And I know a lot of people have criticized I've heard a lot of people criticizing the use of slow-mo and a lot of that. And especially there's a scene with the Flash that's in slow-mo. I personally have no issues with it. I think there are some things in there that I can see not working from a comedic standpoint, but overall, I don't think it's much different than any of the Quicksilver scenes that we've ever gotten. If anything, it's better. And I love the Quicksilver scenes we've gotten, and I'm a defender of Apocalypse as a movie, but that's a different video. And I don't fully see how the aspect ratio chosen for this movie entirely, I don't see how it enhances the movie. If anything, it kind of prevents some casual viewers from fully getting invested. But I don't think it takes away from it in terms of big fans. That being said, this is kind of where some of the issues come in, is the CGI isn't always up to par. You got some shoddy CGI thrown in there, but it's nothing too distracting. It's nothing that takes away from the enjoyment of the movie. And now onto the story and the writing. The overall story and plotline is essentially the same, of Steppenwolf finding the boxes and everything. But there's so much more added, like I was mentioning. You have Cyborg's backstory, which helps add small details to how the Justice League actually come to the conclusions of how they decide to stop the Mother Box's unity. There's so many small details added, and even with Flash's backstory and the use of electricity. The one thing here that was one of my main issues from the theatrical cut is still here. Now, the scene itself is edited and executed much better, but I still don't like this Kryptonian Lazarus pit that this Snyderverse has in that Kryptonian ship. I don't like it. They use it for Zod to create Doomsday. They use it in both cuts of Justice League. Now, the scene itself is executed much better in this version, but I'm still not the biggest fan of it. It doesn't really take away. It doesn't take away anything for me. in terms of the movie as a whole, but it is a small thing that frustrates me. And as the writing is really good and giving you small little details here and there that execute everything, and the thematic richness of the movie and the story as is amazing. That being said, there's small little nitpicky moments, none of which take away from the effectiveness of the movie. But like at the beginning, when you meet Aquaman, there's like villagers singing a weird song, and then one of them sniffs his shirt. It's weird. And then like there's a thing with Wonder Woman when she stops the bombs. That sequence is in the theatrical cut, but it's extended and executed and edited better in this, where she does the arm thing and it blows out like an entire side of a building, almost like a bomb itself, rather than just blowing out the windows, which is like really overkill. And then there's a part of the movie where Cyborg buries something extremely powerful, is trying to hide it, and he buries it like an inch in the ground, and yet something that powerful, and you want to hide it, and you only bury it an inch into the ground. There's small little things like that, and then there's a couple fan service. There's one fan service moment in particular that involves Martha Kent and Lois Lane. They have this beautiful conversation, and then there's this twist at the end of the scene that's a fan service twist, but it kind of takes away from the emotional side of Martha Kent and kind of takes away a little bit from that scene, in my opinion. But all of those nitpicky things aside, there's a couple others, but all of that none of those nitpicky things actually take away from the effectiveness of the movie. Then another thing in terms of the story and writing is the length. It is about at least 30 minutes too long. That being said, it feels more like Zack Snyder's intended extended cut rather than Zack Snyder's intended theatrical release, if that makes sense. But all the power to him. This was kind of just like an HBO Max release. It wasn't a full-on theatrical release or anything. And so it doesn't really bother me that much. And then lastly, the sound. If you watched my review of the Whedon cut or theatrical cut, whatever you want to call it, this was probably my biggest criticism of that movie, how the sound is where you feel the Frankenstein effect, even though the movie itself, I never feel it, even though it kind of, behind the scenes wise, it is. Where in this, you have like this clear vision of the sound and of the soundtrack, of the score, of everything. And there's perfect example is a scene that's in both cuts, and that is when Bruce recruits Barry Allen. And the sound design in that scene is so much more satisfying in this version. Particularly, you get like the what's your superpower? And Bruce Wayne says, I'm rich joke. There's this small little musical cue that happens in that moment that just gives it a hell of a punch to that line that you didn't have in the theatrical cut. And so it just, those small little musical cues add so much to a movie. And the theatrical version just had some generic retreads. And so overall, Zack Snyder's Justice League isn't just an improvement on the theatrical cut. It's an improvement on both of Zack Snyder's previous DCEU works. It's, in my opinion, one of the greatest DC movies ever made. The more I think about it, the more I actually believe that more. It's not... Because I was initially, when I first watched this, because I watched it right when it premiered. And, after I first watched it, I thought maybe it was just the initial excitement. But the more I think about it, the more I love it even more. And so I was blown away by how much I actually enjoyed this movie, especially since I'm very critical of BVS. But this basically took all of the great aspects of BVS and threw all of the bad aspects out the door. But I don't think it's quite deserving of like of an APAP score of 5 out of 5. I don't think it's quite there because it is a little too long. It feels more like an extended cut rather than the intended theatrical version. And there's some nitpicky things. I just don't, as of right now, I just don't think it's fully there in terms of a 5 out of 5. But it's pretty damn close in my opinion. And so Zack Snyder's Justice League deserves a 4.5. Thanks for watching this video. If you have seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, go ahead and share your thoughts in the comment section down below. I obviously, if you can't tell already, loved this movie to death. And if you enjoyed this review and enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash that thumbs up icon and smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell as well to stay up to date. I plan on doing a Zack Snyder ranking. And possibly, I don't want to do a DCEU ranking. I can pretty much probably tell you this would be number one, although I would kind of change some of my placements from my previous ranking. But I still might do some kind of DC ranking that includes Zack Snyder's Justice League. And so, stay tuned for that as well as my monster movie review series. And I will return next time when I see you again.